1,000 homes, demolish the worst of the slums that were there, and build and create 1,000 jobs. And we would fight the cuts. There would be no cuts in jobs or services. And we went out on that plan. And one of the things that I remember very vividly was going when Jenkins, the Tory minister, came to the city, because we were arguing for more money because of the state of housing. And we got this estate of people, we knocked up the whole estate. The Labour Party knocked the estate up the night before and said, we're bringing a Tory minister here. Don't kill him, don't throw things at him, just talk to him. And that man cried as he walked out of those houses. He literally had tears in his eyes. And he said, I had no idea people lived like that. And we got, not just because we upset him, but we did upset him, we did shake him, but the fact the movement was behind us shook him as well. And the fact we were prepared to go to the wire. We were prepared to say, no, we will not pass a budget that has cuts. No, we won't pass a budget that's got cuts. No, we won't. And we had the trade unions organised behind us as well. They were campaigning for us not to pass the cuts. And we refused to do it. And in that first year, the government paid up and paid the money that we needed to balance the budget on our budget. Meanwhile, we pulled down the worst of the slums in Liverpool. It's my city, it's my homeland, other people have their own experiences, but I can remember going into one area. It was held traditionally by the Orange Lodge, and so they voted Protestant, so they voted Tory. It used to be a Protestant party that was with the Tories. And we went knocking on the doors there saying, this place is appalling, it has to come down. And they were going, oh, well, the Liberals are saying we should just improve it. And we said, our plan is demolition. If you want it improved, vote for improvements. If you want demolition, you vote for us. But we guarantee 3-bedroom houses, front and back gardens, central heatings on the site to replace it. Within 18 months, one place was down and the others were up. And I still see it on the bus. You still see those houses there, and the fact that place is gone. And we said we'd have 17 areas of the city that we'd do that to. But all the time we were having to build deeper and deeper into the community. It was knocking on doors, it was organising with people. But remember, this was the depth of the 80s poverty. When to say that, there was holes in the soles of your shoes was standard, absolute dire poverty, because we'd had in the late 70s closure after closure after closure of the factories in the area. We've been deindustrialised. We were in a terrible, terrible state, but we had a tradition of struggle. And once we, of course, elected Labour MPs who fought on the position of a worker on a worker's wage. They took only the worker's wage. Everything else was paid into an account which was audited as to where it went to support the Labour movement. We had, an MP called Eric Heffer, who used to be on the executive of the Labour Party, and in his youth he'd been a building workers organiser, and he'd been able to, the myth of Heffer was he could go onto a site and call people out for lack of safety, even when he was an MP. But that was a workers' tradition and a workers' struggle that was there. Now, having won in the first round, the other Labour councils were saying, well, we want some of that, we'll fight the Tories as well. They came up with a strategy was a lot less clear than simple no cuts in jobs and services. And gradually, one by one, leading up to just us and Lambeth, they all settled with the Tories and they gave in and they made the cuts. We didn't. we passed the resolution that said, we were all formally warned that, you know, we would be all the terrible things that would happen to us if we didn't pass this. And people were able to do it. But we held those 47 people together by recognising it was 47 families. And we had meetings for the children of the 47, we had meetings for the mothers of the 47. My mum, to this day, still considers that, you know, that's one of her roles. She's part of the family support group for the 47. The family support group was set up. It discussed everything with everyone, all the details, and people were involved in it. We had a couple of scabs, but only a couple, but the majority of the 47 stuck together. The 47 were the ones who fought. So all the 47 stuck together. There were about 50 Labour councillors, about 3 scabs amongst us. And we were all surcharged. But I was in court to be surcharged in the High Court in London the same day as I was in the High Court fighting the Labour Party pushing through an expulsion on me. So we were being expelled from the Labour Party at the same time as we were being, literally the same day. We had the same lawyers running in and out of the court. They made it absolutely clear, the Labour Party, that they wanted rid of us and everything to do with our campaign. Yeah, our friend Kinnock. Kinnock, who's sitting there now with his,
Lord Kinnock, is it?
I think so, and his fortune from Europe. Yeah.
Commissioner Kinnock.
Commissioner Kinnock, yeah. But what they did was they tried to drive out of the Labour Party the tradition of working class struggle. And I might be here talking from ours from the 80s, but popular councillors did the same. And in between, one that's forgotten, the Chesterfield councillors did the same on the Housing Act. There is a tradition of struggle in the Labour movement. Now, God knows whether or not you can recapture the Labour Party as such for that struggle, but you certainly can recapture that struggle and bring that tradition of struggle back into the movement. That is really there. There's an anger in people's heads, and they want to hear that you can argue that there is an alternative, that there is something else you can do. But once we were surcharged, and we fought it all the way through, right the way through the High Court, then we were all surcharged, and quite frankly, we know that Thatcher, we've seen documents that says that Thatcher wanted our heads on stakes around the city to see show how badly we've been treated from it. So we not only had to organise the fight for it, we had to organise the after fight for protection.
So she's at Cambridge.
And we went into all of the union branches, we went into the local factories, we went all over. And we asked for 50p a week for the councillors. Will you be prepared to give us a standing order for 50p a week to make sure that the councillors are not surcharged? And we reached an arrangement with the district auditor as to how and the order in which we would pay that off. So organising the fight wasn't just organising going into it, but organising coming out of that fight as well. And nobody lost their house. Nobody. Some of us found it very hard to get work directly in Liverpool again, and some people, some of our comrades are still sort of having to go outside of Liverpool for work, especially the people in the building trade. But the campaign was fought. So the banner of the Labour Party stays, the banner of the Labour movement stays strong and stays high, that you can fight it. Our houses are still there, our sports centres are still there. One of the apprentices that we took on in the 1,000 jobs is now the Secretary of the Joint Shop Stewards of the City Council. So the tradition has been handed on, the tradition of struggle has been handed on as well. Now, they then they set about trying to expel people from the Labour Party and get rid of us from the Labour Party. And I had the privilege of being the last person who was allowed to appeal directly to conference against being expelled from the Labour Party. I knew damn well it wasn't going to work, but it was worth going up there and fronting them to make them do it. And even then, in the speech that Larry Whitty gave to say why he was going to expel me, he had to explain the fight that we'd put up in Liverpool in terms of the contribution I'd made personally in the fight to education, and what had gone on in that field. He'd obviously been, he found it embarrassing as well, but I've got to find this speech, but in the speech I wrote, I said that when the tide of workers' struggle turns and we come back into action, then we'll be there and we'll be in the front of it. And I think that's where it stands at the moment. But that's the history bit. But I very rarely these days talk about 47. And normally, I'm campaigning. I've been involved campaigning against the fascists, because I don't know about round here, but in Liverpool the BNP are cheeky gits that seriously have to be opposed. I'm a teacher trade unionist as well, and I'm fighting in that, and fighting to keep within the movement the ideas of revolutionary socialism alive, so that people don't see it as some academic thing in the past, but it means pulling down stinking slums and building decent houses, pulling down, making sure there are decent parks and there are decent places for people to live, and that social services are provided when we really need them. That's the revolution that we need, and we need it properly. I think we build the struggle by making sure. When I became a councillor for the Labour Party, when I joined the Labour Party as a kid, in every ward, that's every set of streets, there was an organisation of the working class. We build that organisation back deep into the working class. And that's whether we win or lose this round. That's for the future. That's forever. And then we've got to be saying to our leaders, we're not having an island. It's still perfectly possible, but it's on the cards that the trade union leaders could say to us, "Well, accept it. There's nothing we can do." And we're not having. And we've got to use the example of Ireland to say, you bow the knee, you get kicked in the face. Hopefully, Ireland's beginning to organise itself now, but it's horrific. 12.5% pay cut the teachers took, and then that's the first round, and then again and again and again. They tried, there wasn't a short of demonstrations, but the Irish Labour movement has not fought back the way it should, and we can't have that. And you've got to tell people that's the alternative, saying let's be reasonable, but also we hammer through. There is an alternative. This is lies, it's shock doctrine, it's trying to force through, these cuts on the basis of a pile of lies. Immediately after World War II, this country was truly in debt, had a GDP of...
We went out and built social housing.
We can't have this lie that the deficit now is so great we can do nothing about it. Close the deficit by bringing in the revenue. Put people to work, because one source of where their revenues drop is because people are on the dole. Put them to work. The housing campaign is...
When you talk about slums, some of the stories students tell me about